ball in the 28. Snap to Love, drop the snap, picks it up, keep him in the pocket. Love circles back, now rolling right, moving up, waiting the heave, still moving up. Now he throws to the end zone, and it's dropped. The interception dropped, but it doesn't matter. Game is over. Game is over. The Bears have come from all the way behind, and they beat the Green Bay Packers 31-27. All the ghosts of 15 seasons has been released into this cold January night.
What a fourth quarter. What a night. What a trilogy the Bears and Packers just put together. 21-6 entering the fourth quarter. But if you've watched this Bears team all season long, maybe we shouldn't be surprised that the Bears are going to the divisional round. 31-27. Bill Barnwell from ESPN with me after an incredible Saturday of wild card football. This is a game, Bill, that is going to be talked about not just all offseason, but for years to come. It could change the shape of the entire Packers organization. We'll find out about that. But what strikes you the most after watching one of the most improbable playoff comebacks that I've ever seen?
So much to talk about from that game. And I want to be genuine. I thought of like 3-bit responses, and I'm not going to do those because that game deserves genuine analysis. Really, the thing that struck me was just how good Caleb Williams was. I mean, that final drive, they miss. DJ Moore drops what was a perfect pass from Caleb Williams. Then 2 plays later, the fake screen and go hits Moore for a touchdown. Just really more than I guess anything, the poise that he played with, the poise the Bears played with, the poise for most of the game that Jordan Love played with until maybe that final snap where he did fumble the snap. But, it felt like if you were a Bears fan and you were skeptical, and there's reasons to have been skeptical of this team, reasons to be skeptical of some of the growth from Caleb Williams, this was like such an affirming moment for you. They could not run the ball at all in the first half. They were down multiple scores. It looked like it was going to be a hopeless game. And then it had to warm your heart. Even if you're a crusty, old Bears fan and just seen decades of heartbreak, finally, things broke your way in a meaningful moment.
Oh, I mean, if you're a Bears fan now, like this isn't even close to the fully formed Ben Johnson team. You have Colston Loveland going up and down the field dominating. Yep. You have Caleb Williams on a day where for most of the game he was erratic. You are feeling like you have a chance to win any game in any situation, even a game you are down 2 scores in the middle of the fourth quarter after the Bears, climb back in it from 21-6 to make it 21-16. Jordan Love responds, goes on a touchdown drive. They have a 4th and 3 that Drew Dahlman, the recently named second All-Pro team center, moves before the snap, almost starts tipping over. Then by the time he does snap it, he snaps it over Caleb Williams' head. The game is over then. But wait, there's a false start called on that play because he moved. They get another chance at it. And this 4th and 8, that if you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate everyone who's with us after the game. We're going to get to the Rams and Panthers, by the way, which was a classic too, in a bit. But you are watching Caleb Williams pull off,
unreal,
without any context, one of the greatest throws I've ever seen. I love me some Prime Vision. It's because I saw this angle live of him sprinting left and jumping over the outstretched arm of a defender as he throws it rolling to his left over a defender 25 yards down the field. And after that, even though they're down 11 points, Bill, it kind of felt like it was like a snowball going downhill. That was one of the most magical plays because they finished the game off, and now it will live forever, that I've ever seen. Except Caleb Williams made a similar play like that to win a game in overtime against this exact Packers team just a few weeks ago. My God.
Yeah, it felt like one of those games where, especially early on, when the Bears were struggling, it felt like, oh, this is a confirm your priors game, right? I mean, the Bears couldn't get off the field on 4th down against the Packers. Ben Johnson was getting hoisted by his own petard on 4th downs. They were sloppy, making mistakes, 1 of 5. You could even see, like, coming out of the first half, the interview for Ben Johnson walking on the field was almost like, what are you doing on 3rd down, dude? Or from 4th down, dude? Like, you have no idea what you're doing. And it was like, nope, we're just going to, basically implying his defense sucked and that he had to go for it on 4th down and score as many points as possible because he knew his defense was bad. And then for the entire game, it felt like every chance the Bears had at a takeaway just narrowly got stripped away. Christian Watson fumbles at the half-yard line, and the Packers recover. Josh Jacobs inexplicably used on a kickoff return, fumbles, and the Packers recover. A couple of balls from Jordan Love fall harmlessly to the ground when those are passes the Bears have picked off all season. And it was like, well, this is the game that proves the Bears, once you take those takeaways away, they're too easy to beat. And they did a really good job on defense in the second half of this game. I compared the Packers offense to a Kevin Patullo-led Eagles offense for most of the second half of this game, and that's not a comparison you want to hear. So it really felt almost like the opposite. Like, it almost felt like at first we were going to confirm our priors, and then I think as the game wore on, and by the time we got to the end, even though this was a classic Bears comeback victory, the way they got there was so different than so many of the other Bears games they've won this year.
It was, and yet the feeling that they can do it at any time, it's just so un-Bears.
Yes.
Like, they now have 7 comebacks while trailing from under 2 minutes to go. That's the most of any team in the history of the NFL, according to Next Gen Stats. I still got my Amazon Prime broadcast up, and I saw that out of the corner of my eye. So, after that 3rd and 8, they finish off that drive. But it does take Dennis Allen's defense, and we'll get into that. The second half of this game, I thought they did a great job considering how undermanned they were, forcing a lot of one-on-one difficult throws. Jordan Love hit a number of them to still, have 1 touchdown drive and put them in position. But Brandon McManus misses a field goal that was going to put them up 6. It's one of 3 missed kicks he had on the day. Missed a field goal to end the first half, which would have made it 24-3. Misses an extra point along the way and misses that field goal. So they lose 7 points. The old story of the Packers kicker just absolutely killing them. The Bears get the ball back. And at that point, it almost felt like they scored too quickly. Like, the only chance the Packers were going to have was to give up a touchdown to the Bears, and that's exactly what happened. Let's listen to the DJ Moore go-ahead touchdown in the 4th quarter.
Set to the left side numbers. Snap back, 4-man rush. Caleb with a double move, throw down the left sideline. DJ Moore inside the 5, end zone, touchdown! Touchdown Bears! They've taken the lead on the Packers with 1:43 to go. 25 yards, the same connection. Week 16, a walk-off win. This connection, a 3-point lead. Wow!
And that, of course, is our friend Jeff Joniak on WMVP. We'll get to hear him for another week this season, and he's been incredible. And that play call where they fake the screen, just kind of reminds me, like, in the second half of these games, of Packers-Bears games, like, Ben Johnson has had all the right calls. And as much as I'm a Matt LaFleur defender, and each half, in theory, counts equally, the Bears really have had the answers. It hasn't been a great couple weeks for Jeff Hafley's head coaching interview cycle, but Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams executing those plays has really found a way to pick on the weaknesses of the Packers late in these games.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like they had Colston Loveland on deep corner routes and wheel routes and anything to the sideline over and over and over and over again as this game wore along. You mentioned the screen and go for a touchdown. The play before, that was, I believe, was that 3rd down or 4th down, that throw to the flat, but they get a blown coverage out of a stack with DeAndre Swift running free into the flat for 20 yards to set up that game-winning touchdown. And then you mentioned the Packers letting the Bears score potentially and having to have a chance to win.
No, I mean, I don't mean they did it on purpose, but yes.
Right, but like the idea that, like, it probably was going to happen, and so as an inevitability, try to maximize your chances of scoring on the next drive. Well, Gregg, one way you could hurt your team's chances of doing that is by basically lighting your timeouts on fire. And Matt LaFleur, I mean, we don't really have like a valuation for timeouts, but it felt like he got pennies on the dollar for his timeouts in this game. The worst being, of course, 3rd and 10, the Packers call a timeout, and then they come out of the timeout and commit a delay of game penalty. And that costs them 5 yards. Potentially, Brandon McManus might make that kick if it is 5 yards closer. They lose a timeout on defense. They then there's a injury to their center, Sean Ryan, and they have to take a 4th timeout, which costs them a 10-second runoff. Just one of those little things.
Yeah,
I don't think it defines Matt LaFleur. I don't think it's the biggest reason they lost this game. I think, frankly, the kicking, and we'll get to some of the other stuff that they did not do in the second half of this game. But just like a thing in the margins where you would expect a veteran coach who's highly regarded by people like you and me, who I think is a really good coach, to have a handle on. And they just, it was a disaster.
It's a trend, and it's crazy because I think about LaFleur as one of the best coaches in the league. You know, we just had Ali Connolly on, and we were talking about the coaching situation. We've been talking about it all week, the conspiracy theories and the idea that maybe LaFleur isn't a lock to go back because maybe it's a money thing. Maybe it's a Gutekunst is getting elevated over him, and there's like neither side is completely happy. Maybe they want to try to bring in John Harbaugh or something. Like, who knows? Our guy Ian Rappaport reports before this game that the two sides plan to meet after the season with the mutual, goal of getting a deal done. But there is, nothing for certain.
Sure.
And as Ollie was saying this week, he thought, LaFleur did as good a job this season scheming an offense as any coach in the league or that he's almost ever seen. And yet, it is absolutely fair to point out, like, this is a trend. Like, he hemorrhaged those timeouts. If Todd Bowles did that, we'd be absolutely flaming Todd Bowles. Like, if Rex Ryan did that back in the day, like, that was brutal. I mean, the first timeout, they're leading at that point, and then to have a delay of game coming back. The second timeout, it's just so that they can get their defensive play call. Again, that's over 2 minutes, to go in the first half. And then the last drive, Love did hit some incredible throws down the stretch of this game, like in the fourth quarter. And so it's hard to kill Love, but the operation was frantic. He did not look exactly under control. Like, they're barely getting the play call off. Like, the last handful of plays were not giving you, hey, I've got things under control. And Jordan Love is a veteran quarterback. I know he hasn't been starting that long. He's been in the league, 6 years now. It's like
6 years.
It should look a little better than that.
And Greg, the fact that we even got to a point where the timeouts mattered, where the 4th downs mattered, where Jordan Love had to try and win the game. The defense deserves some of the blame here. There were a lot of open plays. Frankly, the Bears could have scored a lot more in this game if not for some of the 4th downs and some of the sloppy play they had. But the Packers melted down in the 3rd quarter on offense. They love talking about how Josh Jacobs is like the heartbeat of the team. He looked really good early in this game. They simply could not run the football. And the Bears are not a great run defense. They had -2 yards on their first drive of the 3rd quarter, 8 yards, 23 yards, and 0 yards on that 4-drive sequence. They get 1 first down before the touchdown drive. That, by the way, they get backed up on 1st and 20 after the Jacobs fumble and a holding call on that drive. But, I mean, they couldn't run the ball whatsoever. And, it felt like so much of this game for the Packers either turned into Jordan Love 4th down shots. They had a lot of success with like motion and getting guys into the flat early in this game, but then final few minutes of this game was Jordan Love trick plays. It was like Jordan Love, back foot slot fades and ISOs against the blitz, and find Kyler Gordon and throw it at him at any point, no matter who he's covering. It felt like the degree of difficulty was so high for the Packers when it shouldn't be. I mean, if you have a $15 million a year running back, you should be able to get more than 1 yard per carry for the second half of the game. If you have an offensive coach who we think is really good, who did such a great job building an offense with Malik Willis, build in some stuff that's going to create some easy completions, some easy runs, some solid gains, make life easy for your quarterback. This is not supposed to be a good defense, and they didn't look good for the first half of this game. And so it just felt like it was such a struggle. And that was, I think, what really seems so frustrating to me if you're a Packers fan, is that it never even should have gotten to that point, Greg.
Right. So the offense collapses in the third quarter, essentially, and the defense is holding on by a thread. But you're right, that 4-drive sequence where they took an average of less than 90 seconds off the clock with the lead and gain under 29 yards. Meanwhile, their defense, which is flawed, gets the 4th and 1 interception of Caleb Williams on the goal line, one of 2 interceptions that he has. They get a negative play to force a field goal in the third quarter earlier, too. So at that point, I think they were, 0 for 3, at least in terms of scoring touchdowns in the red zone. They're 1 for 5 in terms of scoring on fourth downs. And the defense, or the offense rather, couldn't make the other team pay. This is where, I do want to give Dennis Allen his credit, because first half of this game, and we can talk a little more about it, but first half of this game, Love basically throws a perfect game. They go touchdown, 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 and miss a field goal at the buzzer to end the half. There weren't a lot of possessions there, and it's just dime after dime. LaFleur is calling everything right. He goes for a couple fourth downs, and he hits them both. Everyone getting so mad about, how can you go for fourth downs? You're losing points. It's like the Packers scored 2 touchdowns in the first half because they went for it on fourth down, including a great play call by him on the goal line. And everything that Dennis Allen and the Bears defense wanted to do in the second half, where they did get a decent amount of pressure. The success rates were so uneven in the first half. Everything was so uneven. And if you look at everything by the end of the game, it's all back to even, because the Bears essentially dominated the Packers equally in the second half. And that's just kind of been in their DNA. It really is no matter what happens in this Ben Johnson era, even if there's a lot of success, these are the good old days to pull this off with a second-year quarterback and 2 rookie pass catchers kind of as your lead dogs, and have this sort of fourth quarter magic, and to do it against the Packers. I don't want to be on social media if I'm a Packers fan the rest of the offseason with Bears fans just dunking on me over and over.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like, at the very least, you could say with some confidence, Ben Johnson did a much better job of adjusting as the game went on than Matt LaFleur did when it comes to the offensive side of the football. It felt like Ben Johnson landed on a lot of zone clearouts, a lot of throws to the sideline. Again, using Colston Loveland as either a man beater when he was against Quay Walker. Edgerrin Cooper, by the way, leaving this game hurt, I think was a underrated difference. They were able to attack the other Packers linebackers when they were in coverage. And then with Matt LaFleur, like I said, it just felt like they were just okay, we're going to go back and run inside zone, and it's going to work this time. We're going to run duo, and it's going to work this time. And it just never really seemed to find a connection. Jordan Love had to throw them back into this game, and their only success throwing the ball, their only success on offense in the second half was when they had no choice but to throw, and they had to move the ball with the passing game. And so, I wasn't sitting there like they should bench Jordan Love for Malik Willis, but I was like, man, sure would be nice if you could run the Malik Willis run game stuff right now. It really was something that was missing.
It's a fair point that the run game completely dried up, because there were a few different ways that we were going to end up talking about this game. One way is to talk about how dialed in Jordan Love was. The first 3rd and 1 of the game, he throws an absolute dime to Romeo Doubs. It was a great night for Prime Vision to just see these 2 quarterbacks pulling off really low percentage throws. Then Golden beats Jalen Johnson on a double move, and they're just looking great. And then everything's falling apart in the second half, like every Packers game, and you think it's going to collapse. And you mentioned that 1st and 20 situation, and he hits Doubs for 2 straight plays where he's picking on Tremaine Edmonds on the first play, and then it was Kevin Byard on the second, and they picked on Byard a lot in the second half. And then their first round pick, Matthew Golden, makes an incredible individual play. Let's actually listen to the call of what I thought at the time was going to be the call that we went into this recap with.
In the shotgun, they get motion out of the backfield. Quick toss, Golden, right side, got some blocking. Accelerates, 20, spinning his way, 15. Takes a tackle, 10, to the 5, cuts it back, touchdown! Touchdown, Matthew Golden, his first career NFL touchdown, and a backbreaker delivered by the rookie out of Texas. Wow, that was awesome.
That is our friend, and yeah, for the last time this year, Wayne Larrivee and Larry McCarron on WRNW. I mean, it's an 11-point game at that point. That's before the 4th and 8 drama. Like, even after that, Love hits Dobbs a couple times, including on a slot fade to set up that McManus. Like, they were able to make plays. There is just something in the DNAs of, I think, these two teams that, like, situational football plus fourth quarter just is a dramatic disadvantage for the Packers.
I mean, Gregg, Jordan Love almost hit Christian Watson on that final sequence. I think it was the first down play. He threw like an anticipatory dig. I want to say it was like a hole between 5 different defenders in zone coverage. Like it was like under pressure. If he'd gotten, I think like he got hit right as he threw it, and so he couldn't really get as much on it as he would have liked, so it kind of sailed a tiny bit. But like that was almost one of the most perfect throws of the entire season, and it would have probably been the game-winning touchdown. Jordan Love, he didn't play a perfect game, I guess, but man, he was not the problem in this game at all. I think the degree of difficulty was extremely high, and he over-delivered given the circumstances. I'm always really impressed by Jordan Love. I think he's an incredibly underrated quarterback. The fact that he had 2 intentional grounding penalties, doubling his career total in this game, was a little weird. And like he does have that habit of like just chucking the ball out at times, but such an underrated quarterback to me. Just the explosive rate is so high. The chunks are so big. I think people notice his flaws more than what he brings to the table. And I think guys who do pick up significant chunks of yardage when they do throw are underrated in general.
Yep.
I just think he's a really good quarterback. And I unfortunately don't think some other pieces of the offense are up to that standard today.
No, they didn't have Zach Tom, their right tackle, who we thought would return for the game. The rest of the offensive line had their issues. He ends up with 323 yards and 4 touchdowns, so it's hard to kill him. Romeo Dobbs, who's an impending free agent, ends up with 124 yards. He made himself some money tonight, even if Matt LaFleur didn't. The thing I keep coming back to is like Luther Burden with 3 big catches today, although I think on the 4th down early where Caleb threw his first interception, it seemed like Luther Burden ran the wrong route, like he didn't know the play. Something was going on, and then Caleb Williams is yelling about it afterwards. But he's big. Loveland might be the best rookie in the entire draft class of anyone in the entire league. He's at 8 catches for 137 yards. And I just was expecting, okay, Packers, with this lead, they go to Seattle, they set up that matchup. And now instead it's Chicago watching tomorrow and seeing who their opponent is going to be, and they're going to have another home game. Like, I don't know. I'm still like getting over how this game finished.
I mean, Gregg, it felt like maybe the one thing that might have swung this game, and it's going to haunt Packers fans for the entire offseason, is what if the Packers had a dude who could single-handedly win you a pass rush or 2 without having to blitz? And that felt like, there were a lot of moments in this game where Caleb Williams had a ton of time to throw. I'm trying to find the numbers for time to throw for him, but
they both were really high, 3.1 over 3.1 seconds for each of them. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that doesn't happen if Micah Parsons is in there. The Bears, frankly, did not have a great pass pro game at all. On one of those 4th downs, they just let, I think it was Carl Brooks, completely free up the A-gap to pressure Caleb Williams Packers ran a lot of twists in this game that I saw. Have to imagine that that would be aided by adding Micah Parsons into the mix. I mean, is it unfair to say that he wins them this game? Yes, I don't think it's fair to say because there were other factors at play. But if I'm a Packers fan, I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to sleep for the next 6 months wondering, do we win this game if Micah Parsons is in there? Because it's absolutely a possibility.
I mean, you're not going to sleep tonight. It's not happening. The freaking disaster. I don't think we're contextualizing properly that this is one of the worst losses in Packers history. I mean, it really is to be that. How could it not be?
High bar.
How could it not be, Bill?
Is this worse than the
NFC Championship game against the Seahawks?
That's the game I was gonna bring up.
Nothing tops that. I mean, that's a 15-0 or whatever it was lead where you blow an onside kick in the NFC Championship game. But this is to the Bears. It's a 21-6 fourth quarter lead. There's so many different moments where you can put it away, and more than anything, it's possibly the end of the Matt LaFleur era. Like, you hope that cooler heads prevail, but if ever there's a game where there's going to be an emotional decision afterwards, and I'm not sure if that decision is made by LaFleur or if it's made by, the new president of the team or like Gutekunst is involved or how it's all happening, or if it's about money or what it's about. But if there's ever a scenario that makes like a rash decision like that happen and maybe something they would look back on as a mistake, this is it. This is it, because they gagged this game away, and it was just so many like familiar hits of bad LaFleur losses, unfortunately, from over the years, including the missed kicks, unfortunately.
I mean, Greg, it's not just this game. Go back. This is a month. I mean, they lost to the Broncos. They lost a game where if they beat the Bears a couple of weeks ago, where they just have to recover an onside kick to probably win that game, and of course they end up losing that game in overtime. They get blown out by the Ravens, where Derrick Henry looks like he's an MVP candidate for a week, and then they weren't trying against the Vikings. I'm not going to fault them too much for that. I'm going to fault Cleveland Tune mostly for that. But I mean, they're 9-3-1 after that interception by Keyshawn Nixon of Caleb Williams, and they lose their final 5 games of the season. I would say it's the combo of not only how they lost in the postseason, but the fact that they couldn't find a victory and really blew the NFC North with a big advantage over the Bears, or certainly in pole position to top the Bears if they had swept Chicago. It feels like a missed opportunity, and this is a team now where 3 years in a row they've been the 7 seed. I feel confident we're not thinking about this team the same way if we're in the 12-team playoff era. I mean, it's not like being the 7 seed is good. It's better than not being the 8th. It's better than being the 8th seed, but it's not like, sneaking into the postseason as the final seed is like a sign that you're, one of the great teams in football. I know the numbers say the Packers are better than their record, but this has been a consistent thing for them where it feels like we're sitting here at the end of the year and saying, well, their DVOA is good. ESPN Football Power Index says they're good, but it doesn't look all that great when we get to January.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a comment here in the chat that say Packers lost this game, Bears didn't win it. Let's be honest. And to that, I point to that 4th and 8 play. And I point to another hole shot to Colston Loveland after that. There were so many jaw-dropping throws by Caleb Williams, even like before they were really making the comeback. And the thing about Caleb Williams is, like, the play before that, he was just a little inaccurate, and he missed the 3rd down throw. Yeah. And then the play after that, he had an open receiver and missed that throw too. And he ends up throwing 50% completion in this game, and he was dead last in the league in completion percentage. And the more that you watch him this year, the more you realize, like, for now, that's just part of the package. And the good is making up for any of the inconsistency. And for such a young player, you really feel like you can improve on that consistency, and you're having a hell of a lot of fun along the way.
He had a negative 15% completion percentage over expectation in this game, and still made at least 2 3, 4. I'm like just thinking of like great Caleb throws in my head. Just fantastic throws in this game, one of which wasn't caught. So I don't blame
Yes.
him for that. But, like I think it's just you have to accept that flawed and all, this is what the Bears can do. They can look totally hopeless on offense for a half. They can look like they can't cover anybody on defense. They can look like they're going to miss wide open receivers. They're going to be screaming at each other on the sideline. But they also have the potential to be great. And they can be great for a quarter or a half or even a few series. And that might be enough if the other team lets them hang around long enough to pull that off.
I mean, they can have 4 fourth down fails in a game where they can't get many stops. They can have a total of 2 successful runs in the first half. If you're talking about like success rate, they can have Ben Johnson on the sideline looking like, his dog had died or something like that, and pre-answering questions, as you mentioned, like about the fourth down plays and almost just like defending it, and then they turn it all around. They are different, and they are going to the divisional round. What a season. This is it for the Bears. Like, I've had a hard time imagining them making it all the way to the Super Bowl because of this lack of a pass rush, because of this defense. And tonight they lose TJ Edwards, their linebacker. It's still hard to see them winning like 2 more, but who knows? They found a way to win this one. We'll find out their opponent on Sunday. Before we get to Sunday, though, we had another classic earlier in the day on Saturday. Yes, there's been a total of 3 playoff games in the history of the NFL. This one was from Brian Knowles, who you used to work with over at Football Outsiders, who pointed out there's only been 3 games ever where there's been 4 fourth quarter lead changes with touchdowns in the playoffs. It was that great 49ers Saints divisional round matchup between Alex Smith and Drew Brees. It was the great AFC championship between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. And let's go to Carolina, where, yes, Matthew Stafford and Bryce Young gave us a classic.
From the 19, Stafford has it helmet high, settles his feet, shoots right side, leaping catch, touchdown LA!
Wow!
At the front, right pylon, Colby Parkinson gives the Rams the lead. With 38 seconds to go, an absolute dot from Stafford, 33-31, and the try coming.
Our friend JB Long excited for an absolutely fantastic throw, fantastic drive, fantastic fourth quarter by Matthew Stafford in what was otherwise an uneven game for this entire Los Angeles Rams team, including Stafford. Yes, that was Colby Parkinson. That was JB Long on KSPN. The Rams defense holds, gets a 4-and-out on Bryce Young to win 34-31. Back and forth we went, Bill Barnwell, in a game that a lot of us thought it was going to be a blowout. Like myself, I was wrong. We really thought it when it was 14-0 early. We probably thought it when it was 17-7, and it looked like the Rams were driving in for another score right before halftime. But this Panthers team, there's just something about them that is inexplicable, and they were that close to knocking off one of the best teams in the NFL today.
I mean, we got a Bryce Young drive to take the lead. I mean, it wasn't like they, like you mentioned, the 4-and-out to end the game. That was going to be a tough spot. They did have a drop on that fourth down that would have extended the game from Horn, but I was so impressed with how Bryce Young played in this game. This was not a great matchup for the Rams on defense. Great matchup for the Panthers on offense, given the Rams front. They were in Bryce Young's face all day. I mean, he just was getting hit. He was being forced to scramble. He was being forced to create out of structure, and did throw an interception. I don't think that was his fault. I think it was Jalen Coker, I believe, stopped on a route where Bryce Young was expecting him to keep running. But I thought, if you're a Panthers fan, I know you're upset. You're going to be bummed that you lost. This was a winnable game. They played really well. But I think you have to be impressed with Bryce Young in this game. And I think you have to be optimistic about Bryce Young in this game, he was just making plays, extending plays, accurate throws. It's just it felt like this was the closest thing
Mm.
in a big game that I think we've seen to Alabama Bryce Young in terms of the improvisation, in terms of the creativity. And I mean, we're 1 week removed from, frankly, a pretty bad Bryce Young game against Tampa for most of the day. So I think seeing that against a Rams team where they were being physically dominated up front just felt like it has to make you feel good.
It does. And yeah, you mentioned the Rams front winning. And I think that was the biggest difference in this game. Pressure rate, it really depends on where you look. But Sumer Sports, which has a great kind of live box score going in this postseason, had the Rams pressure rate at 47% in this game, and the Panthers down at 9%. And I think they're valuing quicker pressures much more because Next Gen has it, still double for the Rams.
Next Gen is 46 to 23, yeah.
23. But the thing is, Next Gen does like proximity, and you could be like somewhat close pretty late in the down. The thing that is telling most to me is even at Next Gen, 14 quick pressures for the Rams in this game and 2 for the Panthers. And so Matthew Stafford was operating in a much more advantageous situation. And the idea with Matthew Stafford is when he's clean, he's going to kill you. And he did early in this game, and he absolutely did late in this game. And there was a whole bunch in the middle where maybe it was this finger injury that he suffered, and maybe it was just decision making. It was a little bit of everything. To me, it was more the decisions, but ultimately he goes 12 for 15 in the fourth quarter with over 100 yards and a couple touchdown drives. And supposedly before that fourth quarter drive, he gets the ball back, down 4. And Davante Adams, as he tells the story, says, "Let's go snatch those guys' hearts." And Davante Adams says, "That's one of the most gangster things I've heard." Let's actually listen to Kobe Turner, friend of the show, talking after the game about Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, Nine's been in these situations all the time, so I'm used to it. Honestly, I was just telling somebody else. I was just telling Gary. I looked up at the clock. It said 2:34 with 3 timeouts left. My first thought is, do you not know who's on the other side? Like, do you guys not know who 9 is? Like, 9 is that guy.
Okay,
9 is that guy.
He's stop you.
He's fixing 9. He's saving this 9.
No, you cannot call someone 9 in this culture right now. You have to wait. Let the JJ McCarthy pass by, and then you can start using 9 again.
If you're the first team All-Pro, and Stafford did get first team All-Pro, 13 more votes than May. Very similar to the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen vote a year ago. So you can't really say that Stafford's definitely going to win MVP. We don't know. I think he's taken back 9, Bill. Like, it's his. Now, you do what he did in the fourth quarter because I was not expecting this situation, but there they were in this situation, and the offense, and this team has to be led by the offense, ultimately did respond, and they picked on the Panthers in the middle of the field. They took advantage of the fact that J.C. Horn went out with a concussion in the fourth quarter of this game, and they diced up Carolina when they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, outbreaking routes, 26 of Matthew Stafford's 304 yards. Everything else was either vertical or in breaking for Matthew Stafford. That's how the Rams got back in this game, was finding those digs, finding the play action shots, finding some of the option routes where they hit Karen Williams for a touchdown coming out of the backfield. I have to be honest with you, though, Greg. Like, I was not super impressed with Sean McVay in this game. It really felt like for a long stretch, the Rams did not have answers for what the Panthers wanted to do. It felt like Matthew Stafford was throwing a ton to the sidelines. It felt like after they went through their first 15 where they had some fun stuff like the Puka Nacua vertical shot out of the backfield for a touchdown, it felt like Sean McVay got away from running the football. It felt like it was a lot of shotgun, tossing the ball around. And if you did believe Stafford's finger was injured, it seemed like you would have leaned further into the run, and the Rams were pretty successful running the ball in this game, a 50% success rate for the run game that has one of the highest success rates in recent NFL history this season. And yet, really felt like for a long stretch, it was just, we're going to put Matthew Stafford in shotgun and throw the ball. And it wasn't working. And it's fine that they found solutions later in the game. Obviously, Sean McVay is a Hall of Fame caliber coach for a reason, but this is not the first time. I go back to the Super Bowl run. I mean, they almost lost that game against the Bucs because they just kept handing the ball to Cam Akers. They almost lost the Super Bowl to the Bengals because they were insisting on committing to a bad run game at that time. And so, with the Rams, they did win. Our memories are going to be Stafford's final drive and the quote from Devontae Adams, which, by the way, do you want to waste that on the first round? Like, do you think Stafford had that in mind for like a Super Bowl quote and was like, well, we got to toss it out now. I got to think of something more clever for the Super Bowl. But, this is a Rams team where the results have been kind of disappointing for a month now. Do you feel like there's a reason to sort of treat them as something less than what we think they can be based on how they've played recently?
I have thought a lot about that since the end of this game. Like, how much do you take basically everything from when the fourth quarter started in Seattle to now and think that carries forward and knock the Rams and their chances to win the Super Bowl? Because they've looked mediocre since then. They blow that lead in Seattle. They had no business blowing that game. I know it was against a good team, but the way they blew it, they did not play well. They lose the Falcons game in a game they're pretty outplayed. When I finally got back to watching that Cardinals game this week, I was like, man, they were losing with like 2 minutes left in the third quarter of that game against the Cardinals team that had just been absolutely collapsing. And then you have this performance where it goes back and forth. And I tend to think, Bill, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I know, like,
really,
I actually don't feel, I tend to think in the playoffs, like, it's survive and advance. They have all the pieces that matter. That, like, I don't think it necessarily is going to carry over week to week. Like, you think about that Bucs game that they almost lost when they did go on that Super Bowl run. Like, the team overall is not like playing at the highest level of where they've been this season, certainly, but they're going to be in the final 8. And would it surprise me if they just start playing better football consistently from here out? Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all because for the most part, like, they're healthy and there are reasons to believe that they can turn around. It was not a good Devontae Adams game today. Like, maybe that helps with him another week back into the lineup after being out for 5 weeks. Maybe they get Kevin Dotson back. But yeah, like, I think they can still straighten it out, but they survived one today.
Here's the part that concerns me, though. If this had been like a Panthers have everything go right for them game, if it had been like a, Panthers are like the first game. Panthers go 3 for 3 on fourth down. They hit a couple long touchdowns. They win the turnover battle. That was not this game, Greg. The Panthers handed them 3 short fields, 1 on a muffed punt, 1 on, and then 2 on failed fourth down tries. The Panthers do turn the ball over for an interception.
They lost their left tackle almost immediately in the game.
They lost Ike Ekwonu early on to it. Apparently is a serious injury, unfortunately. Then they go to Josh Nijman, who had allowed as many quick pressures per next gen in 2 starts as Garrett Bowles did all season for the Broncos. And he allowed 4 more in this game at left tackle. I mean, they brought Robert Hunt back, and they had to take him out for a stretch because he was just getting run over. Like, it was like you mentioned the pressure numbers earlier in this game. Like, the fact that the Rams could not turn this game script and the things that happened in this game into a 20-point victory does concern me a bit. And, like, I know they're capable of hitting a gear that maybe nobody else in football can hit, but I want to see him do it. I want to see him do it for the first time since Thanksgiving. I want to see him do it for an extended period of time for a full game. Like, this was supposed to be we're going to dictate the situation. We're going to tell you who we are. We're favorites. We're going to get revenge on the 25th best team in football per DVOA. And the Panthers played them to a 3-point game, and it felt like they deserved to be in a 3-point game at the very end.
Yeah, it's a great point that it did not feel like the Panthers were lucky to be in this game. If you took the uniforms off, you would have just said, like, oh, these are 2 pretty equal teams. These are 2 quarterbacks playing at a pretty high level, like, but that made a handful of mistakes each throughout the game and went through little rough patches. But, like, the quarterbacks were kind of even. You could almost give Bryce, a lot of credit because he withstood the advantages. That part of it is concerning, and I do kind of run through a little bit of the run of play because if you go back to the first half and they get that 14-0 lead, they go for it on a fourth down late in the second quarter. They don't get it, and then Bryce Young drives down the field, gets a scramble touchdown before halftime. Like that makes it a game at that point, and then you're just in it. And then if you're watching us on YouTube, you can watch the interception that Matthew Stafford had where Mike Jackson picks him off. And at this point, it's 2017. It's a 3rd and long late in the third quarter. That was the first moment where I thought, my God, they actually might lose this game. Mike Jackson, Bill Barnwell, played the game of his life. He's had a really good season for them, like in terms of advanced metrics. Like he's been one of the better cornerbacks in the league, and both him and J.C. Horn played an outstanding game, and that was kind of the moment that got the Panthers going for their fourth quarter comeback, and that was like kind of kickstarted what was a really fun end to this game, and made me realize like, okay, they actually could win this game. When throughout before that, I just kept expecting the Rams to kind of run away with it.
Yeah, I mean, if the Rams hit that fourth down, you sort of figure, okay, they're going to go in and score. The Panthers are not going to score, and that's going to be like perhaps an unassailable lead for the Rams in this game. And yet the Panthers didn't really even seem desperate to try to score when they got the ball back at the end of the second quarter. They sort of like hit a couple big plays, and it was like, oh, well, I guess we'll try. And then they score a touchdown, and then Puka Nacua drops what should have been a 50-yard touchdown. Hit him right in the hands.
Which is why I kind of struggle with the Stafford finger thing, because Stafford actually had a number of dimes throughout that. He actually had a 2 for 12 streak during the game where he only completed 2 of 12 throws. But Davante Adams had 2 killer drops in this game, and Puka had that one. And if you gave him those yards, he throws for 450 yards or something in this game. So it's kind of hard to separate if there was an injury, like what impact that was.
And I mean, like, I think sometimes when we think about a quarterback being injured less than 100%, we assume that like every pass is going to suck. And sometimes that is the case if you have like a certain kind of injury. But quarterbacks can also be inconsistent. They can feel it some plays and not feel it some plays. They might, if you have an ankle injury, maybe you step into a throw right, maybe you don't step into the next throw right. Like there's a certain level of erraticism that I think comes into play with these injuries. And so if you told me Stafford was sore but not really impacted, I'd believe that. If you told me Stafford was injured and it was actually impacting his throws but not every one, I'd believe that too. I just, it felt like he wasn't confident for that stretch. And I was a little surprised the Rams did not respond to that by maybe leaning a little more into their run game.
Yeah, the run game was quiet. It wasn't ineffective, but you're right. They did kind of go away from it. So the Panthers, respond and get a touchdown, to take their first lead of the entire game after that interception. Then the Rams are driving, and a play happens that I think is going to be remembered throughout the week as like the biggest non-scoring play of the game, which was Puka Nacua breaking up a potential interception of Stafford. It was the ensuing drive. It's a 3rd and 1, and they decide to take a shot. And I think he thinks Puka Nacua is going to keep running on the play. Nick Scott has a chance to make an interception in the end zone, and Puka basically acts like a defensive back and knocks the ball out. That is when they are down 4, and then they end up scoring later in that drive. And so Puka Nacua, who goes over 100 yards, has 10 catches. Between Puka and Davante, they had 31 targets. It was just spamming the two of them. Puka also had 3 carries. I mean, they did that end around play that they absolutely love, over and over. But they threw the ball to him 18 times today to get the 111 yards. But that pass breakup might have been like the biggest play that he made, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Smith, Tutu Atwell, kind of Umfield. Cardio Club, 42 routes, 1 target between the 3 of them at wide receiver. I was a little surprised. I know our friend Mina Kimes also was a little surprised that they did not lean into the tight ends in this game. They didn't have Terrence Ferguson. So maybe that impacted things here and there, but they had Tyler Higbee, had Colby Parkinson, had Davis Allen. The Panthers have been terrible on throws tight ends this year. We saw as the game went on, they wanted to attack Christian Roseboom, wanted to attack Nick Scott, wanted to attack the linebackers, and yet didn't really do that for much of this game until, of course, the game-winning touchdown pass from Stafford to Colby Parkinson. And so I understand wanting to force feed Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. I think Puka made a great play to break up that touchdown. But again, I sit here and say, this is week 19 of the NFL season. You are a veteran offense operating at a high level with the probable MVP at quarterback, a Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, a wide receiver who's probably an offensive player of the year. It shouldn't look this disjointed. Not against the Panthers defense. You should have answers that are not, low percentage curls and out routes that aren't working against the strength of the team. And it just felt like the Panthers made it more difficult the Rams made it more difficult for themselves, just sort of thought they were going to dominate with their talent, and it almost cost them their playoff lives.
Yeah, they end up, when I looked at the final numbers, it wasn't a ton in the first half in terms of going 2 tight end or 3 tight end, but now when I look, like they still, went either 2 or 3 tight end over 40% of the time, which is a ton, and pretty much went at their season average in terms of 3 tight ends, which was by far the most of any team in NFL history. It just didn't work very well. I mean, they average under 4 yards per play with 3 tight ends on the field, under 5 yards per play with 2 tight ends. So, it was a lot of the numbers are coming in those last 2 drives where they kind of finally figured out, and that was mostly with 3 wide receivers. And it's really just the offense wasn't consistent in general. I do want to give them some credit of like the things that they did do well. Like Stafford, I thought his decision making was a little all over the place, but he also did some things that not many like quarterbacks would do. He had an audible on a 4th and 1 to a Kyren Williams run, which was like the exact perfect play call in the time. He had a sneak by himself, which was literally the first one of the season, right?
His first down of the entire season. Matthew Stafford as a runner. He's now 40 behind Drake May, if he wants to try and catch up.
I like what you did.
Good call. Good time for him.
And then there was another 3rd and long on one of their field goal drives in the second half, where he sees exactly where the blitz is going to come from. He moves everything over to the side. They get it blocked up. He hits it, and they hit a field goal later in that drive. So sometimes it's the small things that he does is really good. And yet, they got the ball back with 4 minutes to go. And sometimes you don't need the game-winning drive if you just finish it off earlier. They get it with about 7 minutes left, up 3, and I think they're going to put the game away here, and they take a holding penalty, and they end up settling for a couple underneath passes, and they punt the ball away, or at least they try to. This is where the game got really crazy. Let's actually listen to the Panthers' blocked punt.
Short and had to check that ball down. Evans gets the start. Blocked! The kick is blocked. It's loose. It's on the ground. It doesn't matter who has it. It's Carolina football at the 30-yard line of LA. Isaiah Simmons with the block. He recovers the ball. Special teams comes through.
So they get that punt block. They drive down. That's with just over 4 minutes to go. And Bryce Young is set up on a 4th down situation. And he does what Bryce Young does and has done really the last 2 seasons. If you've watched him every game, you know. The prettiest Bryce Young throws are extremely pretty. He does the hard stuff really well. Let's actually listen to the go-ahead touchdown pass to Jalen Coker.
Young out of the gun. Here's the snap. Bryce looking left, throws. Deep left corner of the end zone. Jalen Coker hauls it in for a touchdown. And the Panthers have the lead with 2:39 to go. Bryce magic is real, and Coker has played the game of his life.
Great call there. Coker goes over 100 yards, by the way. I wanted to correct my mistake. That was a 3rd and 3. I think in my head it was a 4th down because they're down 3, and I'm thinking they're probably going to kick the field goal there, and he just puts that in the spot only Coker can get it.
Yeah, I thought Jalen Coker was really good in this game, running away from cornerbacks. By the way, be honest, Greg.
Yes.
I'll be honest after you're honest. Did you know Isaiah Simmons was on the Panthers when he blocked that punt?
No.
I had no idea. I was like, are there 2 Isaiah Simmonses? Like I was thinking, I'm like, Giants? I know he's in the NFL somewhere, but man.
He was bouncing around. He was with the Packers at one point, obviously, back in the day. No, I did not know he was kicking around on special teams because they are not using him on that Panthers defense.
Big play. And you're right about Bryce Young in that he makes the hard stuff look easy. And I think, like, you know, there's like sort of like a meme or some meme element to him about, like, you know, all his best passes are touch passes. Like the only thing he can do is a touch pass. But like, man, when he's throwing those outbreaking routes and there's a little bit of space to work with, those throws are on the money. He was, again, I just think it reminded me a little bit of like Tony Romo to some extent, where he was like scrambling and like spinning out of pressures and escaping and then hitting receivers on the run. I just, you know, if he had been terrible in this game, I still think they pick up his 5th-year option, but you don't feel good about it. And I think if you're the Panthers, you're like running to the window to hand in Bryce Young's 5th-year option after that game. And not like, you know, this was the biggest game of his career. I don't think it was a game that was single-handedly going to decide his future, but I think it made life so much easier for the Panthers to envision a future with Bryce Young being a focal point of it. Because he was every bit as good as the NFL MVP against worse pressure, with worse receivers, with a less imposing coaching staff, and put Carolina in position to win this football game.
Yeah, I think that the 5th-year option decision is easy, as you said. I think it would have been easy barring just like a disastrous performance. It's a $26 million contract for 2027. And in fact, you could argue, if you're Bryce Young, that the fact that they're just happy giving him the 5th-year option is almost disrespectful. Because it's Bryce Young, he just doesn't seem like he's going to be pushing for a new long-term contract this offseason. But overall, I think his play over the last 2 years, certainly overall down the stretch, like, has been good enough to get that sort of middle tier quarterback contract, and the 5th-year option actually does them a favor because it kind of kicks the can for a year down the road to make that decision. But yeah, Coker had a good game. He gets 9 catches for 134 yards. Teteroa McMillan has 5 catches for 81 yards, and I did think it was a bad game for the Rams secondary in general, because you're getting that pass rush for the most part pretty quick. You would have liked to see them maybe like finish a few more plays, like Jared Verse and Kobe Turner. Kobe Turner did finish plays on that last drive, certainly. But, you know, Kobe Durant's getting picked on. Akella Weatherspoon left this game pretty early with an injury, and they were playing a lot in base with like an extra safety, basically playing a linebacker position, and they're just not impressive. And if you're looking for the biggest problem that they could have, it's going to depend on the matchups. But let's say they're in Philadelphia next week, you know, you got to have Jalen Hurts take advantage of it, but you're loving those matchups of those receivers on the outside against these Rams cornerbacks.
I mean, that's what won the Eagles the game. Well, two things, ironically enough, won the Eagles the game when they played the Rams earlier this year, which was A.J. Brown beating up Emmanuel Forbes, who was the best Rams cornerback, and he, like you said, briefly left the game injured before coming back in. But blocked kicks, Gregg, decided that game for the Eagles, and it almost decided this game for the Panthers. And I guess I want to ask, maybe it's not realistic, but
yes,
do you think the Rams special teams, especially when it comes to blocks and punting, are they so bad that you think Sean McVay drastically needs to change the way he approaches
yes
4th downs for the rest of the postseason?
Oh, Okay, different question than I expected. I thought you were just going to say drastically changes the approach that he has to special teams in general, which he doesn't seem like he really respects it that much or tries that hard at it.
He fired
And
his coordinator and changed the kicker. Like, what else
right,
can you
but
do at this point?
they like just the way he talks about it, the fact that they wouldn't kick the ball last year in bounds, they just took the touchback all season long. I think he's been aggressive going for it on fourth down, and they didn't get it a couple times today. Did they have 2 turnovers on downs, or they just had 1 turnover on downs today? The Panthers actually were quite aggressive and got stopped twice, including on their first drive of the game.
They had 1.
Yeah, I think he needs to stay aggressive because that's where the moneymaker is. That's where Matthew Stafford is. This should be one of the best running teams in the league. Like, they are an offense first team, and yeah, like I'm all for the thicker kicker. And he hit a couple kicks today. That wasn't their problem, but yeah, I think they should be aggressive.
But I mean, like, I'm saying, like, to an extreme extent. Like, let's say middle of the game, 4th and 3 on your own 30-yard line. I don't think Sean McVay is ever thinking about going forward before this season. But do you believe their punting game and their penchant for having stuff blocked is so bad that should become a go-for-it spot for them when maybe it wouldn't have been if they had competent punting this season?
I mean, Ben Johnson essentially went for that tonight in the first quarter of the game, so it's not that crazy. I don't think he will go that far, though. I do think it's a problem, though. And like, special teams was a draw today because, as you mentioned, it is an interesting game to think back about because the Rams were given a lot, including a special teams turnover that sort of evened out that fake block punt. It just was a ball bouncing off the Panthers' helmet on a punt earlier in the game. They also had like a wide open drop, the Panthers, that killed the drive on third down, and then the Rams, credit to them, did have a couple fourth down stops that gave the ball back to their offense. It's an interesting game too because, like, you look at the score and you think it was like a great game by the offense, and you see that the Rams got over 400 yards, and it wasn't like a terrible game, but they had 13 possessions. They had it was the exact opposite of what happened when these two teams played the first time around, where it was just like very limited possessions. The Rams got as many possessions in the first half of this game as I think they might have gotten in the entire game last time. They had 7 possessions in the first half. So they had 5 punts. They had an interception. They had the block punt. They had the turnover on downs. There was actually like a lot of Rams possessions that didn't end up in points, and I think that's why it left you feeling so underwhelmed. Maybe I'm biased here in a house with a couple women wearing Rams gear today, but I kind of look at playoff games where you shouldn't win and you win usually as just like the odds are you'll probably play better next time. Because that's like how the regular season works too. People always like, oh, they're lucky to win. But it's like, no, they'll probably play more at their level the next time around. Like if they've established the level, and then you don't need to be as lucky.
If they've been playing great for the last month of the year, and then they had a stinker here, I'd be like, okay, whatever. But it's been a month where they've been okay and losing and in danger of losing. I mean, I don't know. I picked them to win the Super Bowl after the season, so I don't know any better. I'm with you on this, but I don't know. I was expecting, especially after the 14-0 lead. I mean, it felt like I wasn't going to turn it off.
So easy too.
But I thought about, like, maybe I'll put something else on the second TV and see if I want to focus on that. Like, maybe there's some soccer.
I mean, it was so easy. That first drive was like a 4-play drive, and there was no one within 10 yards of any of the defenders. It almost looked unfair early, which is why I give Coker and Bryce and that coaching staff, because look, I know the Bill Barnwell article about teams most likely to regress is coming out next August or whatever, and the numbers aren't going to be that kind to the Panthers. Granted, they only won 8 games, but they've kind of profiled all year like a 6-11 type of team, not really even an 8-9 type of team. But this will make everyone feel good, I think, about how this season ended. And yet they have a lot to work on. I think just roster-wise, it did show some proof of concept, though, of that, okay, maybe Dave Canales really can be the spiritual godson to Pete Carroll and just, like, make everyone super positive, and that somehow overwhelms, like, logic.
Well, let me
win in
ask
the fourth
you,
quarter.
it feels like the last 2 years we've entered the offseason and the Panthers have, like, their goal has just been, oh my God, we have to help Bryce. Oh God, Bryce is a disaster. We have to fix him. We have to help him. Is this the first offseason where the Panthers can go into the offseason and not be like, oh my God, we have to get 3 more receivers and another running back, another offensive line? Like, do you feel like they've done enough?
No.
To sort
the
of,
crazy
like,
thing is I think
fix
they
what's
kind of
around
still
Bryce?
need. I mean, they couldn't run the ball all down the stretch. They were a little better today. Not really. A 42% success rate isn't bad, but they only ended up with 83 yards on the ground. They were one of the, I think, the 2 worst running teams in the league since week 10. So you can't run the ball, and your number 3 receiver is who? Like, no one, essentially. It's Jimmy Horn, who's dropping a ball at the end of this game. It's Xavier Legette, but you can't trust him. So you don't have much receiver depth. You don't really have a tight end that you love. So no, they still need more on both sides of the ball. But I think they'll feel better about it. It would have been an interesting what if Jimmy Horn catches that ball. Is he probably in bounds, or he gets out of bounds at like the Rams 45 and you're throwing a Hail Mary, or maybe you have 2 plays and you can get a little closer and throw a Hail Mary. They're probably not really going to win this game either way.
Probably not, but
or kick a field goal there. Like, can you get Ryan Fitzgerald like a 65-yard attempt? It wasn't that far away.
And it wasn't like it was the Bears conditions either. It was a little nicer out there than it was in Chicago.
What a day, Bill. Thanks for honking and going all over the place. I love a little, like, a bombs away type of game, because that Panthers-Rams game kind of was a sneaky bombs away game. You know, everyone complains about how it's just like everything's short passing in the NFL today. Bryce, way over his average, 9.4 air yards per attempt. And Matthew Stafford was almost at 12. Like, he was just hucking that thing down the field. And he got it done.
You can't ask for anything more for an NFC wild card Saturday than the 2 games we got today.
Yes. That has to be... I'd have to go through all the wild card Saturdays, but it is off to a rollicking start for this wild card weekend. I can't imagine there's been any better than those 2 games. That was an all-timer in Chicago. And I think if we went into the day thinking the Panthers were some great team, we would be calling that an all-timer too, because that was back and forth as good as it gets.
Can I tell you what the 2 Saturday games were last year, Greg?
Okay, please.
Texans 32, Chargers 12, a game where neither offense looked like it had ever played football before for the first half of the game. And Ravens 28, Steelers 14, a game where I literally could not tell you one thing that happened in it.
And yet you were on live with me on YouTube after that game too. We've made this Saturday evening a tradition.
The year before, Texans 45, Browns 14, Chiefs 26, Dolphins 7, the game where I was afraid Tua was going to freeze. We did get Jags-Chargers a couple years ago as a Saturday night game. That was a pretty good one. But I think this is the best 2-game Saturday slate we have seen in the Super Wildcard era.
They're no longer calling it Super Wildcard, and you know what the key was, Bill? They took the Texans out, and it's the first time, I can't believe this, it's literally the first time they haven't been in the early Saturday game, the Westivus game. Our great friend Chris Wesseling, who named it Westivus because it was the day every year, the time every year that the Cincinnati Bengals would go bye-bye for the playoffs, Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton and the whole crew. Well, you know who was on the Carolina Panthers? And they gave it a good try, but they also said bye-bye in the Westivus slot early. It was Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you. We will be back on Sunday night. We're not going live on Sunday night, but we will be in the studio with all the trimmings, me, Nick Shook, and Patrick Claybon, recapping all the Sunday games. Looking forward to the triple header. Man, I thought that Bills-Jags game was going to be the best game of the weekend. It's got a lot to live up to. We'll see you then.